I wanted to start off this talk with two tidbits, one humorous and another one completely serious. So since most people would want to leave already, I'll start with the humorous part. This is a joke I often tell at a lot of social gatherings, which I don't get invited to anymore. But my social impediments aside, one of the things I kind of say is if you or someone that you know doesn't have a problem with property or real estate in India, he or she is probably not Indian, right? So completely serious, cynical but true, and obviously not so funny once you hear the rest of my talk. And on the serious side, I'm rich, like not in a rags to riches type of way. I was born, with a lot of privileges right at the beginning. So I hit the ovarian lottery, born to the right family at the right place at the right time. The reason I mention this is for two particular reasons. One, when people disagree with you, they tend to look at your profile and your background and try to find incentives and try to poke holes and prod to see why you say the things that you do. So I wanted to take that out of discussion, and so we can actually get to the objective points of listening to what I'm saying and trying to find merits and demerits on the basis of the arguments versus who I am as a messenger that's delivering it. So one of the things that we kind of have a problem as a country with, and something we don't really realize, is property ownership and land rights in the country. And so what I mean by that is a lot of people might be unaware that India is one of the few democracies, if not the only democracy, that has repealed the right to private property as a fundamental right in the Constitution. 1978. So what I'm here for to tell you is that that needs to change. And why is that important? So 84% of household wealth in India, according to RBI, is concentrated in property, land, and real estate. This is around 42% in US, so literally half. And throughout the talk, I'll be mentioning US a lot, primarily because we are now one of both US and India are the two largest democracies in the world. So it's relevant that we discuss another democracy in the context of it. While 84% of household wealth in India focuses on land, real estate, and property, 66% of all court cases in India deal with land disputes. So not only is it you're an asset, it's also one of the greatest liabilities, right? So, we kind of need to wonder why and how we came to this point. And I like to use something of a framework which I call CHAPS. C stands for citizen point of view, H for historical, A for anthropological, P for philosophical, and S for state point of view. When I say state, I mean collectively the entire state, all branches, not one particular government, not one particular branch, right? So let's start with the anthropological view about why this is very important and why Article 19(1)(f) needs to be reinstated in the Constitution, meaning a right to private ownership should be reinstated as a fundamental right and recognized as such. So from an anthropological view, I can actually make the argument, you can have counter-arguments, that India as a country wouldn't exist if it weren't for recognition of ownership of particularly property and land. What I mean by that is, I'm sure most of you are aware that humanity has started up as hunter-gatherers. The reason we're able to build collective and communities, cities, towns, and villages, and ultimately countries, is because of human relationship with land, and the outcome is farming. So the ability to stay in a particular point because of farming allowed humanity to build great cities, and therefore great collectives and communities, which eventually turned into countries. So it's almost impossible to come to the point that we have in the social constructs that we have today if But what is a practical effect of repealing this article, the fundamental right to private property ownership? The practical application is that the citizens can no longer directly approach the Supreme Court to solve land-related disputes directly. You have to go through the lower court system to first, and then you can potentially make it to the Supreme Court system for land disputes. So that's a practical effect of it. Now, going to the citizen standpoint about why this is important. So it's very interesting, right? You're born into a country, and the country, one of the first things a country does when it's born and when it gets independence is that it's asked recognition from all the other countries around the world to say that I am now a country. India wants US recognition, China recognition. China wants Taiwan to be recognized as its own by all the countries, and that's what forms as a linchpin. And essentially, that also means that the borders of the country are the sovereign claims, and everything within it is also protected by the government. If the government and the state say that right to private property, and therefore even the land, is not a fundamental right, then how is it possible that the sovereign wants me to respect its borders as its own and as fundamental to it? Meaning, my brothers and sisters are sometimes sent to the borders to fight against other countries if countries trespass into my borders. Lives are lost when our borders are encroached. So the state wants me to confirm and recognize that land that I don't even own, but is a sovereign claim, is something worth losing my life for, but yet fails to recognize that the property that I've earned or inherited is fundamentally my own and not accorded the highest respect. This seems like a dissonance, a cognitive dissonance to me, right? Now, if we say, fine, we put that to the side, but the government also says that it has the right to tax on property. So it taxes you, it sends you to fight for its borders and lands that are actually not yours, even by its state's own admission, or not accorded the highest respect. Lose a life, pay a tax, but it doesn't want to solve my problems inside. So essentially, we need to care a lot about when another country attacks us, but if I have a problem with my own property and my own borders, it'll take me 3 decades to go through the court system to solve it. It seems, what they've done in terms of repealing is politically convenient and expedient at the cost of public inconvenience. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that I think it's very difficult for the state to make a claim that we need to respect what is its sovereign rights and claims when the state itself does not accord to me the highest respect for my private property. So what are the solutions to all of this? Essentially, I want that article reinstated into the Constitution because the reasons for repealing and what they said they do after they repealed it did not come to fruition. There's no point for my rights to be watered down when the government had made a promise that it cannot keep. Number 2, in the failure to do so, the government should take on a private sector approach to solving this problem. And this is what the US has done. US has almost nearly the same land laws as India does. But the reason it's secure is because they empowered in the creation of the title insurance industry. We still don't have title insurance in this country, and for people that are unaware, insurance penetration rate in India is actually higher 10 years ago than it is today. That's basically because it was a very tightly controlled government sector. There's many, and that's a different conversation. And the third option is a government can say that I'm going to instate conclusive titling. What is conclusive titling? So it's a system of titling that UK and Australia have, wherein every property transaction, the government sits in between and says, look, whoever is the seller of the property is actually the owner of the property, and whoever is the purchaser is the financier. India does not have conclusive titling. What it has is something called presumptive ownership. The government says, I don't want to take any responsibility on confirming who is the owner. In fact, I leave it to the buyer to determine and do the due diligence on whether the seller is actually the owner of the property. So basically, the government has dismantled my rights towards property without deconstructing the bureaucratic processes and regulatory bodies that the government had to streamline that process. Meaning, the revenue system is still there, the registration system is still there, there's no conclusive titling, the government doesn't want to take responsibility for who actually owns. Apparently, it's the buyer's responsibility to do the due diligence on whether the seller is actually the owner. So you have to run around multiple departments to claim that this land is yours. So either the government adopts a conclusive titling system, maybe doesn't even have to reinstate Article 19(1)(f), or it reinstates Article 19(1)(f), and then also allows the creation of the title insurance industry. And this is actually very important, even in a historical standpoint, because one of the reasons that US rebelled against UK way back in the day was a slogan that they united around, which is no taxation without representation, right? But obviously that applies in many regards to what I'm talking about today, but I'd like to leave all of you with a comment from Patrick Henry as well, which says, give me liberty or give me death. So we need to learn how to fight. We need to learn as citizens what we're missing out. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean we don't have problems. Just remember, 2/3 of all court cases in India deal with land-related disputes. All right. Thank you for your time.